Welcome, everybody. I believe that today should be day 12. Yesterday was day 11. I don't even know. I'm losing all track of days being stuck in the house. Well, anyway, I did not do my daily webinar yesterday, and that is because life took over. And between dealing with the kids' needs and cleaning the house, it was Sunday, and all of that fun stuff, I just couldn't find time to stop what I was doing and jump on here. Hello, Laura. So it is Monday and I'm back again. And today I wanted to talk about shifting from the sprint of adjusting to this stay-at-home order and this global pandemic and the shelter in place and the quarantine and isolation and social distancing. I wanted to, oh, thank you, Laura. I've been thinking about you too, hoping you're well up there in Canada. I've been thinking about all of these adjustments that we had to quickly make, but now it's been a couple of weeks. In my state, town, family, we're entering week 3 of being ordered to stay at home. Well, I don't know if this is week 3 with our state, but this is week 3 of our, yeah, I guess it is, because our kids' school closed 2 weeks ago tomorrow. So, or it closed and went to online instruction. So at this point, we're in week 3. The first 2 weeks, the first week and a half, I would say, everybody's energy was high. The emotions were running high. And I sensed that, inside of my family, and I sensed it out in the world too, but I'm just going to talk about inside of my family. I sensed that that everybody was kind of scrambling around with the novelty and the rush and the transition of it all, trying to adjust to, well, what does this mean we can't go out? And can my friends still come over? And can I still go to their house? And can we play outside? Can we play in the backyard? Can we go to the movies? Can we go to the mall? All these kinds of questions. And when is my school? And is it going to be live? Is it going to be recorded? Is it going to be an assignment? And adjusting to the work of it all, and or the change of it all, let's say. But then I think on Thursday last week, or Wednesday, midway through the week, I sensed a definitive shift from the sprint to the marathon. I could sense the energy in my home with my family members was shifting from that high energy adjustment period to the long, slow grind of it. And here in the US, the president just extended the social distancing guidelines through April 30th. And today is March 30th, and so we're looking at least another solid month of being in this situation. And I don't know exactly what that means state by state here in the US. I'm assuming that I live in New Jersey, which is not far from the epicenter of disaster in New York and New York City. We live about 90 miles from New York City, and we have the second highest number of confirmed cases in the United States, behind only New York. And I think as of yesterday, we were somewhere around 13,000 cases, and New York is pushing 60,000, I think, at this point, or they were yesterday. I don't even know what the numbers are today. So we have significantly less than New York, but then the next highest state is somewhere in the couple thousands. So currently we are the second highest. And I'm assuming that because the social distancing guidelines by the CDC are extended for another month, I'm assuming that our schools will be closed at least through the end of April. And then as that gets closer, all the leaders will reassess if it's safe to come out of our houses again. And so now we have at least something that we can wrap our heads around. 2 weeks ago, the president said a 15-day social distancing guidelines, limiting gatherings of people and stuff like that. So 2 weeks ago, we could kind of keep in our heads, well, we're in this at least for 2 weeks. Now we can wrap our heads around, we're in it for another month. At least that's my experience here in New Jersey and the United States. So it really goes back to shifting from the sprint of the transition and the change and the shock of it all to the marathon. And I think about the people in Wuhan, China, and I think about I read the first article about this new strange virus that seemed to be causing pneumonia in people. I read that on January 3rd. I actually remember. And I remember thinking, oh, this sounds like another SARS type of thing. I wonder if it will be as bad as SARS. Little did I know that it was going to be way, way worse. And so I remember seeing how China was locking down on the people in that province. And I remember seeing little clips from their, I think it's Weibo, their social media, where people were doing exercise in their house, yoga, jumping jacks. One person ran like a half marathon around their living room. It was very interesting. But I never thought for a minute that just a few months later, I would be living in the same situation where I'm trying to figure out how to, um, I'm trying to figure out how to keep everybody stable and healthy and balanced while we're stuck at home. Now, we have a house with a yard, and we live in a neighborhood with sidewalks and streets and stuff. So at this point, at least, we're still allowed to go out. So we're still allowed to go ride our bikes and take a walk, and I like to run with my dog. We could play frisbee outside. We could throw a ball around. Our parks are closed, so there's no playground or basketball or anything like that because of the virus living on surfaces and the close contact with basketball. But we can still get out and move around. So we're not quite in as bad, as restricted of a situation as Wuhan. But regardless, how do we shift from the sprint to the marathon? And how do we look to the light at the end of the tunnel? There is one, we just don't yet quite know how far away it is. How do we look to the light at the end of the tunnel and get there mostly or fully intact? That's what I want to talk about today. But before I do that, let me just read what Laura said. We've been on spring break when we were on spring break when the pandemic was reported. Today is our official first day back to school online. So it said in yesterday that we're in online learning due to the virus. My youngest thinks she's on vacation still. My oldest is freaking out because she wants to do well in online school and is feeling the anxiety of the unknown, especially as she was going to graduate from elementary school. We've been doing walking and running laps in the backyard. Our parks are closed, but we can move around if you can. Yes, shift from the sprint to marathon. Deep light in focus. Deep. The light is in focus. Keep the light in focus. Yes. Okay. So how do we shift? My family members are all different, as we all are. My 17-year-old needs space, but I still need to check in on him. I don't even check in on him every day in terms of a conversation. Maybe it's 3 times a week, maybe. And I get in his world, and I just check in. How are things going? What's the latest? What are your friends up to? How you feeling? And that seems to be enough to keep him going. He gets a little chance to decompress and download his frustrations and his disappointment, sadness, anger, all of that stuff. And then he's good for a couple more days. He has been working out in the basement. We have gym equipment in our basement, fortunately. He's been working out in the basement. We have a beach volleyball court in our backyard. And so my husband and him and my niece and my brother-in-law, who also live with us, they've been getting out in the backyard and playing. So that's been a great stress reliever for all of them. They're getting exercise, they're getting fresh air, they're getting vitamin D from the sun. Wonderful. And they're doing something that they've always enjoyed. So that's been really good. So that's what the 17-year-old seems to need. And you kind of have to factor in their age and their personalities and kind of figure out what is best for each of them with those factors in mind. My 15-year-old daughter, she is a, hi Bhavani, welcome. Where are you joining us from? I'd love to know. So we're talking about how to shift from the sprint to the marathon of this pandemic and how to keep ourselves balanced and healthy and intact during this stressful, challenging time. So my 15-year-old, she needs structure and she needs balance and she needs a schedule, but she doesn't naturally create one for herself. So I've been needing to help her keep her daily priorities kind of in her field of vision. So making sure she eats at regular times. When she was in school, it was easy because she ate before she went to school, and then she ate during lunchtime, and then we had dinner and whatever snacks. But now it's kind of open-ended, so she has to make sure that she's remembering to eat in the morning, eat at lunch, and then obviously dinner. I have a little more influence on that. So it's been like trying to make sure she remembers to eat because she doesn't have hunger sensations like the rest of us. So she could come downstairs at 3 in the afternoon and realize she hasn't had breakfast yet. So helping her to keep those things in, asking her each day, what's your plan for movement or exercise today? Sometimes she does something on her own, a YouTube video or something like that. Sometimes she goes for a bike ride with me. Sometimes she goes for a run by herself. It's just different things, just checking in with her and encouraging the regular timely eating and the exercise. She's pretty disciplined and focused with her schooling, so that's not an issue. And then what are we doing with our free time? Sometimes we play family games, sometimes we watch a movie, sometimes each person does their own thing, and really trying to mix it up so that it's not the same boring thing. Like we're not watching a movie every single night. We're not playing a game every single night. There's a little bit of together time and a little bit of free time so everybody is not getting sick of each other while we're in this marathon. My 12-year-old son, he's pretty disciplined with remembering when his classes go live and um, getting exercise without being told, eating without being told. But what I noticed with him, I thought that he was doing quite well with the adjustment to this online schooling. Then I noticed that his grades started plummeting over the last 2 weeks. So then we had to print out all of his grades for all of his classes and then get on his Google Classroom. Last night, my husband and I sat with him and we had to really create a plan. I was letting him kind of do it mostly on his own, self-managed, but it became clear that that's not an option when I looked at his grades on Friday. So now we've come up with a plan to help him. He's going to show us each of his assignments before he turns them in at 4 o'clock each day. He's going to review what's due, when it's due, tell us when he's planning to get it done, and we're going to try to stay on top of him in that way. My other two kids are managing their schoolwork just fine. They're remembering to turn in their assignments, their grades are fine, not a problem there. But I can't let this pandemic wreck my 12-year-old. That would be irresponsible of me as his parent. So it's clear now that he's having some challenges self-managing this school as a 7th grader. So we put a plan into place to help him stay on track. and remember his assignments and remember to turn them in on time. Like maybe something was due at 12, he turned it in at 12:30, he got a 0 on it. So it's just little things like that. So as we're getting into the marathon of this and the daily grind, I'm trying to figure out who needs what, how they best operate, what they can handle on their own, what I need to help encourage or nudge them on, or put boundaries and limits and structure around, like my 12-year-old. And we're continuing to try to make healthy food choices the best we can with what we have. We're fortunate that our grocery stores are fairly well stocked, so there hasn't been any kind of shortages per se that we have experienced other than paper towels. But we're not out yet, and we'll get them when we get them. I mean, it's not a big deal. We can always just use regular towels and keep washing them if need be. No big deal there. But we're trying to eat the same stuff as well as we can. We're trying to get sleep. I know that all of our bedtimes have shifted later and all of our wake times have shifted later. But with the exception of my 17-year-old, it doesn't really seem to be much of a problem. He's going to bed really late, 3 a.m., 5 a.m., 10 a.m. Whew. But he knows that that's not really a good a habit to get into. So he's trying to wind the clock back a little bit and go to bed a little bit earlier. So then between my husband and I, we're trying to make sure we squeeze in our exercise. I've definitely noticed for myself that I'm much more sensitive to the weather. My emotions are much more impacted by the weather than they ever were before. And I think it's just like a byproduct of being at home and managing so many people and managing my work and keeping myself balanced and giving myself self-care. On the rainy days, I feel a little less tolerant, a little more stressed, a little more irritable in general. And then on the sunny days, I feel great. I feel positive and uplifted and energetic and fine. So that's not usually how I am. So that's a change for me. Also, I haven't been exercising every day. I normally exercise 3 or 4 days a week. And I think I'm pretty much sticking to 3 or 4 days a week right now, but I'm noticing that I really need to exercise every day, because if I go 2 days or 3 days without exercising, I am so irritable and angry. Like yesterday, it had been 3 days since I ran or exercised. I was so grouchy and irritable that I told my daughter I wanted to bite anyone who was within 6 feet of me. She hugged me and she said, "Are you okay, Mom?" And I said, "I'm just really grouchy today, and I'm so grouchy I want to bite anyone who's within 6 feet of me." She went, "Ah!" and stepped away. So I knew that I desperately needed exercise, and also cleaning the house makes me feel better. When the world feels out of control and things feel out of control, controlling my environment makes me feel better. So I tore through the house yesterday and I cleaned everything with my family's help. But it felt really good to look around and see the fruits of my labor. That brought my stress level down a little bit. And as soon as I was done cleaning, my husband kindly made dinner and I went out for a run. And I was very aware of like trying to put with each step, trying to expel the frustration and the aggravation and the irritability. And I didn't want to come home until I squeezed it all out of me. And I did. I walked around the block a few times after I finished running so that I could really be in a better place when I went home. And when I walked in my front door, it was all gone. I had wrung out all the toxicity, all the frustration, all the anger, and then I was reset. And I was very aware that cleaning the house and doing heavy exercise was really what I needed. And I felt so much better when I gave it to myself. So when we're in that marathon, self-care is critical. Balance is critical. Trying to help your loved ones in your house with that stuff is also critical. and being compassionate with yourself and each other and being flexible and keeping your expectations. Maybe your expectations were here, maybe they were here, but they need to be like here. We need to have very low expectations, like as low as we can get them, and then anything above that feels like a win. It might not be anywhere near what we were hoping to accomplish prior to the pandemic, but anything above this is a win. So that's also what I would suggest. And Laura says, yes, we've had a shift of sleep-wake times, and yes, we've had a shift that follows the weather as you've shared, and yes, the exercise schedule is off. My oldest daughter swims, and it's really affecting her that she can't swim. Oh, my heart goes out to her. Swimming is such, you burn so many calories when you swim competitively. All of my kids swam for years and years until one by one they decided to stop. But it burns so many calories, and it's such good exercise, and it's so good for your mind because that hard work is so good. So I can imagine how hard it is for her that she's not able to swim right now. And you say it's so great to clean house, physical, emotional, mental cleansing, and going for a run to get it all out. I agree with the expectation level. It's a great way to stay present too. Speaking of presence, nothing. I'm not sure I've never seen anything on a global scale to force us to come into the present moment like this pandemic. I've had individual experiences in my life, such as the death of my daughter, that brought me to a distinct understanding of the present moment, but I've never seen anything on a global scale that is offering us the chance to come into this moment. We don't know what the future holds. We can't predict. We can make plans and prepare ourselves, but we really have no idea and we have no control. The only thing we can control is ourselves. And the only moment we have is this one right here. And I appreciate that you guys are spending this one right here with me because we're connected, we're sharing ideas, we're supporting each other. And staying in this present moment is the very best thing we can do. You can plan for tomorrow, you can plan for next week, but we don't know. We don't know, we don't know normally, but we especially don't know with this pandemic what tomorrow holds, what new restrictions are going to happen, what horrible things, how the numbers are going to look. We don't know. All we know is where we are here now. This is it. This is all we've ever had. This is all we're ever going to have. So just stay here now. When you find yourself worrying about tomorrow and wondering about next week and, oh, when are my kids ever going to go back to school? Just bring yourself here. How am I going to pay your bills? Here. It's all we can do. We can plan for all of those things, but bring your attention right back to this moment. And you say, I was thinking that very thing this morning upon waking, that we are all in this on a global scale. It offers an opportunity for compassion, empathy, acceptance, and so much more. Yes, yes. And Bhavani says, I'm a single parent and worry about our daughter having to go back and forth, especially because I don't know what he works or where and how much he gets exposed shopping for groceries. So Bhavani, I'm not sure what kind of a parental setup you have, but I know that I have friends who are divorced, and their divorce was extremely, extremely contentious, and it was bitter, and it was nasty. And they agreed on a very strict 50-50 parenting schedule. The kids are with him 50% of the time and her 50% of the time. And it is like down to within the hour that they go back and forth. And that's all they could do to make it workable because it was such a bitter divorce and custody battle and everything. But during this pandemic, he's able to work from home. She still has to work at her job where they're not having customers come in the store. They're doing curbside pickup, but she still has to go there. So she's still, quote unquote, out in the world getting exposed. And so what they agreed was the safest for their 4 children was for the kids to stay with their dad. And they're pretty much there with him 24/7. And that's totally against their visitation child care agreement, but they thought it was the safest for their children. So I don't know what if you have any kind of working relationship with your daughter's father, but it may be something you want to discuss in terms of and keep it focused on what's in her best interests. And sadly not. That's a shame. I was very impressed that these 2 friends of mine were able to come to something that was in the best interest of the children, because that's what the answer is here. Focusing on that's actually always the answer with divorced and separated parents. What is in the best interest of the children? How can this setup be created to best serve the needs of the child? And normally we're talking emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, what have you, all of it. But I think in this case, physically is a priority. So you can't if you can't work something out that is workable with your daughter's dad, then I think the next best option is taking all the proper precautions, making sure that she understands very solid hand washing, maybe wearing a mask, maybe making sure she's staying 6 feet away from her dad at least, just so that there's no real sharing of potential germs between them. If you can't have her, if you're at home all the time and you can't have her home with you all the time, then I think the next best thing is to make sure that she understands how to keep herself as safe as she can from potential exposure. And Laura says, my heart goes out to you. I'm a single mom. I understand. Know that I will be praying for you and your family. That's such a great point, or such a kind thing to say, Laura. I will keep you in my prayers as well, Bhavani. This is hard for everybody, and it's even harder for parents who are trying to protect their children, and it's not as easy with another parent who's not fully in agreement. Empowering our children in every way, trusting and praying. Yes, I think that if you can't change your situation with the childcare right now, empowering your daughter is what's going to bring you peace of mind, and it's going to bring her peace of mind. Can I ask how old your daughter is, Bhavani? I'd love to know that. 12. Oh, you have asthma. She's old enough at 12 to understand about proper hand washing and social distancing and wearing a mask or putting a bandana around her face or something like that. I think she's probably old enough to take control of this and keep herself healthy no matter whose house she's in. And Laura says, don't forget, you're braver and stronger than you think. So true. This pandemic is calling on all of us to step up, step into our power, find out just how brutally strong we are. We are tough, we are warriors, and we will get through this no matter what. We will do this. And I am going to be praying for you guys. I'm going to be here every day supporting you, offering my ideas, sharing the ideas you come up with. This webinar gets recorded and posted to my YouTube channel, so you can see all the other recordings I've done. I'm sharing this with parents. So anything that we discuss in here is going to collectively help all of us. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap up today's discussion. Bhavani says, thank you, such kind words, and I hope we will all on the planet go inward and see how much we actually need. Yes. And Laura says, we forget that in these hard times, but the mere fact that you have your own life experiences and situations speaks to your strength. Draw on that and the strength of your child and children. Much love. Yes. Yes. Bhavani, you're stronger and wiser than you could possibly imagine. And we're cheering you on all the way, and we're holding you up with virtual love, hugs, and energy. You got this. All right, that's it for today. I hope that you'll be able to join me tomorrow. Stay safe out there and stay socially distant. Bye.